Hello, hello. So glad to see you back. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to say something that may change how you approach your next level identity. If you are in a season of expansion, this is what we're going to talk about in today's episode. If you feel a quantum leap building, if your old identity is dissolving and your new one is not fully stable yet, you do not need to do this alone. In fact, you shouldn't. And at this stage, community is not a luxury, certainly not during a quantum leap. It is crucial because when you are surrounded by other ambitious, heart-centered women who are also expanding, something extraordinary happens. And that is exactly why I created a 2-day event called the Freedom Framework. On April 20 and 21, 2026, in Paris, we are gathering for a 2-day high-touch business transformation intensive for 6- and 7-figure women entrepreneurs who are ready to scale strategically and recalibrate their identity at the same time. We will talk about systems and marketing, and we will map out your 10x strategy, the one that will get you to 7 figures or beyond. But we will also do the deeper work, the identity work, the nervous system work, the support work, because scaling without support feels like pressure. Scaling in community is exciting, it is fun, and if you can do it in the company of incredible women, it makes it an experience you look forward to. If you want to see what that looks like, what the event looks like, I want you to go to boldheart.com/events and watch the videos from our last 2 Freedom Framework events, the one in Paris and the one in New York. Watch the women in the video. Watch the energy. Watch what happens when high caliber women come together in one room with open hearts and bold visions. You will see the magic. And if something in you says, I think I need to be in that room, then apply to speak with me for 15 minutes. Let's see if it's a match. This is a super intimate event. This is why I'm curating it. This is why it's important that I speak to every woman for 15 minutes before I can let her in. And seats are very, very limited. That is on purpose because I want every woman there to feel deeply supported. If you are ready to quantum leap with strategy and sisterhood, go to boldheart.com/events. Watch the videos and apply to speak with me. Your next level does not have to be lonely. Now, let's dive into the episode. Hello, beautiful, and welcome back to the Fabienne Show. Today, I want to talk about something that almost no one prepares you for when you begin to grow at a much faster pace. We're always talking about expansion and stepping into your next level and bigger strategy and bigger action. And we talk about quantum leaps and identity upgrades, what it feels like to have 7-figure energy and to show up as a bigger leader. But what we don't talk about, at least not enough, is what happens in between. What happens between making the decision to go big and actually arriving there. We don't talk about the collapse that sometimes, and dare I say almost always happens before you reach the transformation. It feels like a breakdown, and it almost always comes before the leap. At least that's what's happened with me and countless women that I've helped cross that line to 7 figures. We don't publicly talk about the stage where the old you no longer fits, but the new version of you isn't fully embodied yet. And this is what we can call today the limbo of transformation, right? Or it could be the breakdown before the breakthrough, this no man's land in between, whether you're up leveling in business or in your personal life. And that space can feel really disorienting. It can make you really question yourself, your direction, your dreams, whether you have what it takes, whether you are meant for more. And it can feel really, really lonely where you're feeling all the feels, right? It can even feel like you're going backwards, that everything is breaking around you instead of feeling like you're headed in the right direction, headed towards that transformation. But what if that breakdown isn't actually about going backwards? What if it is actually the breakthrough in progress, a recalibration, an alignment? Let's talk about the season of shedding. Now, as I'm recording this, we are energetically moving from the year of the wooden snake into the year of the fire horse in Chinese astrology. And even if you're not someone who follows Chinese astrology, there is something deeply symbolic here that I think is really powerful for us to discuss. The year of the wooden snake was 2025. We just ended that year in February 17th of 2026. And it is associated with introspection, inner transformation, shedding, strategic recalibration, just like it's all inner stuff happening. It's about all of the internal shifts that have to happen beneath the surface. It's an energy of evolution, of moving away from before you can reach what you're moving towards. The year of the fire horse, which is 2026, on the other hand, represents boldness and momentum and visibility and speed and movement and charisma, expression. It is dynamic. It is expansion. And it is forward. It's fast, right? The reason I bring this up is because this is the part that matters. A snake has to shed its skin before it can move freely, right? And you cannot also gallop like a fire horse if you are still wrapped in the skin of who you used to be. So that means that there's always going to be a shedding before speed. What I like to call a breakdown before you can break through. And I've talked to the members of Bold Heart about this for years. This is what I teach in my mindset teachings because it creates some peace around what feels like the collapse. It's usually not something we are taught out there publicly. And I know this because I have experienced it many times at each level of expansion. It's like you have to slay a new dragon before you can move to the next level, right? There's always going to be a dismantling before an expansion. It's a rite of passage. In fact, at Bold Heart, we call it new level, new devil, right? But it doesn't have to take a long time. I'm going to show you this today. So the reason I'm bringing this up is a lot of people are experiencing things that feel uncomfortable right now. And if you are in a season where things feel like they are dissolving around you instead of accelerating, it may not mean that you are off track. It may mean that you are molting. I don't know why. Whenever I'm talking about things like this to the women who choose to work with me, I'll use an analogy of birth. I want you to see this like the contractions that come before you give birth, right? They're deeply uncomfortable. They come on pretty suddenly. They can feel scary, but they are also short-lived, relatively speaking. And most people who experience this kind of jarring discomfort get scared, and sometimes they think, oh, they need to stop moving forward, unless they are accompanied by someone who's already been there, who can normalize this for them, who can hold their hand and get them across the finish line, kind of like a midwife or a doula, right? Somebody to say, this is normal. Don't get scared. We're just going to have to get through this. And that's what all women, myself included, who cross over to 7 figures or beyond experience at one point or another. They had the courage and the guidance to move across safely. What it requires, dear friend, is letting go of the old you, that old identity or that old paradigm, as Bob Proctor used to teach, before you can step into your new identity and move forward towards your big goals. It is absolutely necessary. It is, like I said, a rite of passage. So let's look at what this identity collapse actually feels like. So you have some examples. So when it shows up in your own life, you don't get too scared. I don't want to scare you. Identity collapse isn't glamorous. It doesn't feel like a breakthrough moment in the sense that there are angels singing and clarity is pouring in. It feels more like self-doubt. It feels like old relationships falling away, like maybe your team isn't working or your clients are not coming in the way they used to, or a particular type of client is no longer pleasing to you. Maybe things are breaking around you, and maybe that's your systems or your business model, or literally things are breaking around you. It may feel like your confidence is being shaken, like you're doubting yourself, like your motivation is down, that you're spiraling. It can even feel like grief or confusion. I'm sharing this with you now so you can apprehend it and recognize it when it comes. The way I see it, it's like a tap on the shoulder from the universe that a recalibration or an alignment is not only being called for, but is happening right now. This is when you start to realize that the way you used to operate doesn't feel aligned anymore or doesn't feel satisfying anymore. You no longer want to be the one who carries everyone else. Maybe it shows up as you no longer wanting to be the achiever who proves her worth through exhaustion. And when you realize this and you align with a different way of being, then you stop playing that role. That's when the entire ecosystem around you adjusts. So if you stop overgiving in your business to your clients or to your team, some people might leave. If you realize that a particular team member isn't working out or a heart sync client has to go, it can feel really, really heavy. It feels uncomfortable. It also feels like if you stop doing things the way that you've always done them, some people may question you. It seems like people are not supportive of you or don't agree with you. And that can feel like everything is falling apart, like you're making a mistake. But it is not. You are simply shedding and you are transforming on the inside. And I'll give you an example. For me, it looked in the past like sometimes it was a health concern. I had this huge bloodshot eye the day before my first big 3-day event. I mean, like the entire white part of my eye was bright red. And I could have said, like, we're not doing this 3-day event, but instead I kind of took my bangs and put them over my eye, and I did the best I could for 3 days. I also experienced this breakdown before the breakthrough when 2 pivotal members of my team gave notice on the same day. I was gutted. I just went home and I cried in bed all afternoon. I don't mean to make it sound melodramatic, but I was wondering why this was happening to me. Little did I know that it was happening for me. The old way had to go. Sometimes it's technology breaking all around, right? Or when I first raised my rates a long time ago, like nobody was buying and I questioned myself. Sometimes on a personal level, it looks like friendships falling off, right? When I first reached 7 figures, or spiraling when I decided to change my business model from one-to-one to create a program where I could help so many more women in such a more, I don't know how to say, supportive way, if you will. It sometimes feels like everything is breaking apart and that you're making a mistake for wanting more. But from my deep experience, this is just that breakdown before the breakthrough, and you've just got to hold on. You just have to have faith and some courage. You have got to expect this. It is an identity restructuring, if you will. And it's actually needed and something we want to welcome. So when it first happened to me, I was like, oh my God, stop everything. And then when I realized that with every new plateau that had to be transcended, there was going to be a couple of days or a couple of experiences that became uncomfortable, but then the breakthrough was on the other side. I started seeing it as a game. I started welcoming the breakdown and say like, well, I guess the breakthrough is right around the corner. So I'm not here to scare you. It doesn't happen all at once. One time it was the eye thing, and one time it was technology, and one time it was the team. It's not all of it at once, right? But again, like the birth analogy, we don't want to not have contractions because we know that everything that we want is on the other side of the pain, right? And it is a temporary pain, and it's not always a painful pain, if you know what I mean. So What I'm trying to say is there is a void between the old you and the new you that is forming. There is a very specific moment in growth where you are no longer who you were, but you are not yet fully anchored in who you are becoming. And that in between space is what this void is. And the void can be terrifying because it lacks certainty. You lack certainty when you're in that limbo. Your old coping mechanisms don't feel right anymore. Your old rates don't feel right anymore. Your old team may not feel right anymore. But your new way of being isn't fully stable yet. And so the clarity isn't fully here yet. And so you feel more sensitive. And it's easy to interpret this as instability or like everything is going wrong and it's time to go back to what used to be. But once again, I just want to reassure you that if you're experiencing this right now, it is actually integration. The old paradigm and the new goals are integrating together into who you are, into your identity, the one who is going to experience that quantum leap. And this is why you must, and I'm going to say absolutely must, be well accompanied when you are experiencing this. Otherwise, you will retreat. I cannot stress this enough. Your nervous system is learning how to hold more without bracing or breaking, right? Your self-worth is learning how to exist without overworking or overgiving. Your leadership is learning how to function without constant proving or self-sacrifice or self-abandonment or putting the needs of others before your own. It is learning how to say no and set boundaries, to charge more. It's in the learning process, right? When a baby starts to learn how to walk, it falls down on its bum a few times, right? It's not like they go from crawling to running. It takes some trial and error, and that's the void that you're in right now. And it is an exciting time when you recognize it for what it is. It's the required space for the transformation to occur. The problem is that many people panic at this stage. This is so unfamiliar that they fall prey to fear. They get really scared. And instead of going forward, they go backwards in their actions. They bring their rates back down. They stop being visible on social media. They, take another client that they don't want to take on. They go back into what felt productive and familiar, even though it would keep them where they used to be. The void is not empty. It is like a gestation. In all things, there is a law of gestation, in the sense that transformation doesn't happen overnight. Again, another birth analogy, if you'll allow me. We cannot rush the baby. We must, if we can, let it develop over the entire 9 months. We do not want to rush things, right? Same thing here in your business. It is the space where your new identity is consolidating. And we cannot go over it. We cannot go under it. We have got to go through it. And if you know the children's book, We're Going on a Bear Hunt, you know the concept. So why does this feel like chaos? Well, I've discovered that when your identity shifts, your brain experiences it as a threat. Your brain prefers predictability, even if that predictability includes stress. So when you start to do things differently in your business, when you start to maybe pull yourself out of the day-to-day operations of your business, or you bring on another team member that is a little bit more expensive, it's not unusual to hit a panic point. When you start to shift how you show up so that you can scale without being involved in every single aspect of your business, what happens is that you also begin to detach from the identity of the one who does it all, the one who is the indispensable one. There is a moment where your nervous system starts to ask, who am I if I'm not that? Who am I if I'm not the one that everybody depends on? Who am I if I'm not the one that's on every client call or in every team meeting? Who am I if I'm not constantly busy? Who am I if I stop earning my worth through sheer effort and being constantly on and being constantly present instead of just letting someone else help me? Who am I if I am not the rescuer to every client or the good girl who says yes to every request? That kind of self-questioning can feel like things aren't safe, but they are not unsafe. It is just a temporary deconstruction as you are building your new identity. And that deconstruction is necessary before reconstruction, right? So if you take nothing else from this episode, I want you to hear this. Your breakdown is not really things falling apart. It is not really breaking. It is basically identity recalibration. It is your system reorganizing to hold more wealth, more safe visibility, more empowered leadership, more freedom and downtime, more sovereignty. What I want you to get from this is that the woman who is about to experience a quantum leap cannot operate from the same nervous system patterns that she had before. She cannot carry the same self-image or show up in the same way in her business. You cannot cling to the same way that you deal with your team and the same way that you show up over giving to your clients. And you cannot charge the same or do the same things that don't create results. Something is going to have to fall away. And that falling away is not a punishment. It is simply preparation. So how do you navigate this stage with grace? How do you do this without falling apart? And I didn't mention, but it doesn't last. Sometimes it just lasts a day or two. I'm making it seem maybe worse than it is. It's a temporary recalibration. So what do you do when you are in the middle of this identity collapse? Well, first, you stop labeling it a collapse or a failure or something dramatic. Nothing is really breaking. You're safe. You're fine. You just need some integration time. This is about protecting your transformation. This is not the season to overschedule yourself. This is the season to go take a nap. This is the season to protect your thinking time, to journal, to meditate, to eat well, to have creative time, to have quiet time. Don't scroll so much. Don't numb so much. Just create some inner work time, right? This is the season where sacred time becomes non-negotiable. Just really unplugging from things. The to-do list will always be there. You need time to integrate. This is the time where you do not let every request override your me time on the calendar. This is the time where you do not sacrifice your reflection space because someone else feels urgency and is asking you to do something. This is essentially a healing time, healing the old, mourning the old. We talked about this in a recent podcast episode where sometimes you have to mourn the old before you can step into the new. This is where you allow yourself to observe without judgment, to notice where you're still wanting to go backwards. Notice that you still feel guilty for resting. Just noticing is powerful and it's part of the transformation. The woman you are becoming does not need to rush the process. Just trust it, okay? It's also about getting into a community of other women where this is normalized, where you feel safe talking about this breakdown, knowing that you won't be judged, but that this is actually part of the process. A community where you are held and yes, you're given strategies, but where you are also invited to do the inner work and the resting, not just the strategy work. A space where you have not just a place to celebrate all the big wins, but also a soft place to land when you need it most. Among other women who have big dreams like you do, who will remind you of your greatness and your capability on the days where things look hard and they look difficult. Otherwise, you will give up. In isolation, it is so easy to give up on yourself and your big dreams. Conversely, being well surrounded, not surrounded by the people in your life that are not entrepreneurial, because those people will see you stressing out and tell you to go get a real job. We don't want that. You want to be surrounded by other women who get you, by mentors who understand and have gone through this process, right? Who can tell you what's on the other side of this. guide you along the way, again, like a doula or a midwife soothes you in this very temporary limbo and helps you across the finish line. Surround yourself with women who believe in you fiercely, who you can laugh with and also cry with. They will cry with you. Women who will love you through this process. And by the way, this process can be very short. Sometimes just a day or two, sometimes just a week. It's not actually a big deal, but it is pivotal. And it's hard to do it alone because it's easier to talk yourself out of your next level when you're scared, when things don't look normal. But when everyone you are surrounded with keeps you in faith, and when everyone you're surrounded with also is taking similar steps forward when things get hard, you will find that you have more courage. You will be braver. Your heart will be bolder. So, it's 2026. The fire horse is coming. It's here. It represents movement and courage and forward momentum. And it is not timid. It is not apologetic, and it does not shrink. It is like serious. It's saying, let's go, let's grow. But this horse runs freely because she has already shed. So it's important that you shed now too. And if you are in a slower season right now, if you're feeling introspective, and if parts of your life feel like they are dissolving rather than expanding, it may simply mean that you are still in the shedding stage. And that is not a step backward. It is actually a step forward. So get yourself the help you need. Get yourself a community that will help you. It is the final preparation before acceleration. I want you to take a deep breath with me right now. If things feel uncertain, you are exactly where you need to be. And I mean that, truly. If parts of your identity feel like they are unraveling, you are, again, exactly where you need to be. If you feel like you are in between versions of yourself, say to yourself, oh, this is because my transformation must be on its way. I'm just going to hold on. In fact, it's not just that it's coming, it's that you are becoming. You are becoming that woman on the other side of this recalibration. And she will not need to force her quantum leap. It will feel natural. It will feel aligned. And it will feel inevitable. I have seen it. I have experienced it. Trust the shedding, my love. Trust the recalibration. Trust life. Trust the universe. The leap is closer than you think. I'm here for you in this time. If you want support navigating this in-between space, whether it's strategically or emotionally, so you can reach that next big level, the one that you secretly dream about, but with more ease, that is exactly what I do. All of us here at Bold Heart. You don't have to experience this alone. I'm sending you so much love. You can do this. See you next time.